What up, Josh Rubin from East West Healing Performance. Today I want to talk about how to work out and actually stimulate growth hormone release in the body. Now, I've talked about this before. If you're injured, if you have a history of injury, chronic injuries, if you have tons of joint pain, if you don't know what you're doing, if you're confused, and if you don't feel vital, meaning you look in the mirror and you're pale, overweight, don't do this. Consult with your practitioner. This is for more of the seasoned athlete, someone that doesn't have chronic fatigue. I would say you can cycle this. It really depends. Sometimes I cycle it within the strength paradigm when working with someone. Sometimes I actually put it in the power part of their paradigm. Sometimes I might actually do it when I'm making a transition from stability to strength or from strength to power. It really is all person dependent. But you want to do this with the right person, so just keep that in mind. There's a lot of research to show that how you work out influences the hormones in your body. And what people don't realize is that the amount of time under tension, which is like how long you do a specific rep, as well as how long you do a specific set, as well as how long you work out per se, which is like volume, can actually influence what energy systems you're actually activating in the body. And if you look at how most people work out, most people are activating the aerobic energy systems in the body. Now, the aerobic energy systems in the body are typically recruited over time. So the more time under tension, meaning if you do a set over 60 seconds, even 70 seconds, 80 seconds, even 2 minutes, on and on, you're actually activating the aerobic energy system, which actually encourages glucocorticoid release, which is cortisol and all those different things in the body. Cortisol is interesting because we need it to survive. It helps fight inflammation, regulate blood pressure, regulate blood sugar. But at the same time, when working out, it's actually very catabolic. And these hormones are antagonistic to strength and hypertrophy and fat loss in the body. Glucocorticoids actually inhibit or retard amino acid incorporation in proteins. And you actually want to do the opposite when you're trying to build muscle. You want to break them down and build them back up. It actually helps to maintain normal blood sugar levels to conserve glucose and promotes the use of fat. But the problem is if you're always training in the aerobic energy system, you're training people to be more efficient at actually burning fuel than burning fat. So training for long periods, or I should say training for or doing a set or circuit that's longer than 60 seconds, typically you're training the aerobic versus the anaerobic systems. And the example we always use is look at a long distance runner, not even a marathoner, just a long distance versus a sprinter that's sprinting for 20 seconds, maybe 30 seconds tops, if that. You can look at the muscle development. The difference is because the sprinter is getting so much growth hormone release, not tons of cortisol release because they're not going anaerobic, and they're actually giving their body time to rest, versus the person that's always running long distance is pushing more glucocorticoids out, which is actually catabolic, breaks down muscle. And you actually burn glucose for energy and not fat. So what Chekshow, Pollock, and these Finnish researchers showed that short rest periods, typically between 30 to 60 seconds. I usually like the 60-second mark. That's just what I'm comfortable with people. Coupled with high volume training, volume meaning lots of sets, there's many ways to look at it, and things like that. We'll just keep it simple. They've actually shown that this type of training can cause elevated levels of growth hormone in the body, as well as testosterone, which causes an anabolic rebound in the body, which causes increased relative strength. This is basically relative strength is anyone that wants to get stronger and maintain body weight without putting on extra weight. Should be like a boxer, someone that has to make weight for MMA, a figure skater, a swimmer, someone that wants to get stronger, doesn't want to get bigger. Now, growth hormone is important because it stimulates protein synthesis, growth, and organic metabolism of the body. Testosterone stimulates the development and maintenance of sex characteristics, of course, and actually increases protein anabolism, and that's what we want. So how do we do this? Well, I've done a YouTube on this before, and you can refer back to it. I forget what it's called, but just check my YouTubes out. One way to do this, and it's the actually simplest way, and I'll do this between the stability and strength when I'm shifting from stability to strength or strength to power, or sometimes in between their first strength program and their second, is what research shows, and Polkin does this a lot on his German volume training, is you'll do 10 sets of 10 reps in one particular movement that mimics what that person needs. For instance, let's say you're working with a swimmer. You're going to do a pull-up, like I've talked about this, because it's actually a closed chain movement. It mimics the sport. So you're going to do 10 sets of 10 reps with a 60-second rest, and you're going to do it at about a 70% intensity. Now, that's 70% of that person's 1 RM, and you have to kind of figure that out. Meaning, if someone's 1 RM for a pull-up, and let's say they're using a dumbbell between their legs, their 1 RM is 100 pounds. Their 70% 1 RM for that 10 reps of 10 sets is 70 pounds. So you can go from there and kind of figure that out. So you're getting that anabolic rebound because you're constantly getting that almost like a sprint, that growth hormone, testosterone release, and then you're giving your body enough time to recover, but you're not pushing your body into the aerobic energy systems. Because you're going for about, I don't know, if you're doing a set and you're doing 10 reps for 10 reps for 10 sets at 70%, you're going to pick a time under tension. This might be confusing for people, but just let's simplify it. This probably is more for the practitioner. You're going to keep those reps so they don't actually go over a 60-second set, let's say. So let's say you're doing you could do a 202. You typically don't want it to go over 20 seconds if you're trying to hit the anaerobic system, 20 to 40 seconds. So you could do like a 202 tempo. You could do a 303 tempo, a 303. You could do a 212, 101. It really depends on the person, but you want to keep the time and attention between 20, 40 seconds. Some people even say 70 seconds, but if you want to hit those type 2B muscle fibers, get that growth hormone response, you want to keep it to about 20 to 30 seconds. 20 to 40 seconds, sorry. If it doesn't make sense, if you're doing 10 reps, and you're doing a 212 tempo, which is you're basically pulling yourself up for 2 seconds, you're pausing for 1, coming back down for 2, that's 5 seconds. 5 times 10 is 50 seconds. You could do it differently to keep it to the 20 to 40 based on who you're working with in their sport. So that's one way of doing it to get that growth hormone response. Now with people, everyone does it differently. It depends when I put it in their program. If I put it between programs, I might actually do that for 1 week. With me, people might do it longer. I actually only do it for 1 week with people to get a shift before going into the next program. Another thing that you could do is focus on relative strength. Like I talked about, relative strength is actually trying to increase strength without increasing mass. And the reason this happens because your set range is typically between 1 to 6 sets, and your rep range is actually lower, and your time and attention is higher depending on where you are. Typically, if you're doing less reps in relative strength, the tempo is actually a lot slower. And if you're doing higher reps in relative strength, the tempo is a little bit faster. But the reason for this is actually getting a neural demand through the body, and you're increasing the intramuscular response in the motor units. So you're not getting a cellular metabolic response, which is more hypertrophy and muscle gain like bodybuilding, because you're not doing higher reps. You're not doing reps over 8 to 12, which actually stimulate the metabolic or more of the cellular adaptation in the muscle itself. So one way to do this, Polican kind of lays out with relative strength, is per set. You could actually do basically 7 sets on an exercise if you're doing relative strength, and your rep range, you know, anywhere is basically going to be between 2 to 5 reps, let's say, or 2 to 6 reps. And you're basically going to go up from 85% to 94%, and then back down 94 all the way to 85. But in there, you're doing about 6, 7 sets per se, because your reps are so low, and they're always inverse. So you might go 85 the first set, and then 88 the second set. And then you go up to 94% another set, and then 94% another set, and 94% another set, and then you go back down to 88, and then you go back down to 85%. So you kind of go up, level off at 94%, and then you go back down for 7 sets. And this actually increases the anabolic response. You're actually going to give that person anywhere from 3, because it depends what the rep rate is. They're actually doing a lower amount of, they're doing a higher intensity, they're doing lower reps, you know, based on their scheme. So you're actually going to give them a longer rest. Sometimes you give them 2 to 3. Sometimes you might even give them 5 if they're doing, you know, 2 reps. You might give them a 5-minute rest. Actually rest the nervous system. And that's what you're trying to rest. It's a neural drive to the system. It's not cellular or metabolic. So they actually need longer rest. The nervous system takes 5 times longer to heal. So you need to give them that rest. But doing this will actually give them that growth hormone response, testosterone response, increase their strength, but not increase their size. So hopefully you enjoyed it. This is definitely for the practitioner, but if not, keep it simple. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'm out of here.